should have known something was off when the guy didn't ask for references. All he needed was someone discreet, respectful, and comfortable with isolation. And honestly, I am all of those things. I've been job hopping since college. Bartender, delivery driver, even 2 months at a mortuary. But this one was different. He found me through a temp agency and offered $5,000 to house sit for a week. Cash, no contract. The house was an old mansion tucked into the hills of rural Vermont. The address didn't show up on GPS. He gave me directions scribbled on the back of a bar napkin. When I asked what I'd be watching, he just said, "The Harlow property. It's been in the family a long time. You'll be alone, but you'll be safe. Just don't go in the basement." That last part was said without a hint of irony. He handed me a single brass key, told me to arrive before sunset, and left before I could ask anything else. The road up to the house wasn't really a road, more like a forgotten trail carved into the woods. My phone lost signal after the first turn, and the forest swallowed all sound like a sponge. When I first saw the place, I actually thought it was beautiful. 3 stories of weathered stone and black wood, perched on a ridge with a view that went on for miles. Ivy crawled up the walls like veins. The windows were dark, not boarded, just watching. I stood on the porch for a few minutes before unlocking the door. The moment I stepped inside, the air changed. Heavier, still. The house didn't smell like dust or rot. It smelled preserved, like the air hadn't changed in decades. Everything inside was antique. Grandfather clocks, velvet drapes, dusty paintings of men and women with blank eyes. Candles in every room, even though the lights worked just fine. I dropped my bag in the study and explored. Every room looked lived in, but untouched. No cobwebs, no damage, everything clean. That should have been my first warning. No house this old stays this perfect, without someone or something taking care of it. The first night was quiet, too quiet. There were no crickets, no owls, just a thick silence that felt like it was listening. I tried watching something on my laptop, but the screen kept flickering. Eventually, I went to bed in one of the upstairs rooms. High ceiling, fireplace, a bed too big for one person. The room was cold, even with the fire lit. I woke up around 3 a.m. with the blankets on the floor and the door wide open. I remember locking it. Told myself maybe I was sleepwalking, but then I saw it. On the wall above the fireplace, a painting that hadn't been there before. It was me, standing on the front porch, wearing the same clothes from earlier. The detail was perfect, too perfect. And in the window behind me, barely visible, was the outline of a woman, watching. I tore the painting off the wall, flipped it around. No signature, no date, just 4 words scratched into the canvas. "You've already been here." I barely slept after that. The next morning, I decided to call the man who hired me. No signal. Landline, dead. I tried to leave, to get in my car and drive back down the trail. The car wouldn't start. Battery was fine, fuel, full, but the engine wouldn't even turn over. Then I looked up the path, and it wasn't there. Just trees, dense, endless, like they'd grown overnight and swallowed the road whole. I walked for half an hour in what I knew was the right direction, then ended up right back at the house, standing on the porch, wearing the same clothes from the painting. I checked my phone. The date hadn't changed. The time was 3:33 p.m. Every time I looked, it was still 3:33. I tried to calm myself, tried to make sense of it. Maybe I hit my head, maybe I was dreaming. I went back inside, opened the fridge. Everything inside was fresh, like someone had just stocked it. But none of the food had labels. Milk in a glass bottle, bread in wax paper, fruit that looked too perfect. I didn't eat, I wasn't hungry, I was being watched. I could feel it. Later that evening, I heard a knock at the front door. I nearly cried, ran to open it. But no one was there, just a package, wrapped in black paper. Inside was another painting. This time, it showed the hallway upstairs, the one outside the bedroom I'd slept in. And again, me, standing at the end of the hallway. This time, looking toward the bedroom, and behind me, the woman again, closer. That night, I heard music, software, faint, like a music box echoing down from the 3rd floor. I hadn't been up there yet. There were no lights, but the melody was clear. A lullaby I didn't recognize, but somehow knew. The stairs creaked under my feet, but not like wood. More like breathing. With every step, the air got colder. The music got louder, and then it stopped, all at once. The hallway at the top was lined with closed doors. But one of them, the last one, was cracked open. Inside was a nursery. Old toys, rocking horse, crib. And on the wall, every painting I'd seen, framed, lined up, chronological. The porch, the hallway, the bedroom. Me. And next to the newest one, a blank canvas, still wet. In the corner of the room stood a tall figure, covered in a black veil. Not moving. I backed out slowly, didn't breathe until I shut the door. When I looked back at the nursery, the door was gone. Just a blank wall where it had been. It's only been one day, but the house says otherwise. The clocks don't move, the sun doesn't rise, the paintings keep changing. And I found a note in my bag this morning, one I never packed. It was scrawled in my handwriting, "Don't let her paint you." The house added a room. I'm not kidding. Yesterday, across from the study was a coat closet. Small, useless. I remember because I threw my backpack in there when I first arrived. This morning, I opened the same door, and it wasn't a closet anymore. It was a hallway, narrow, dimly lit, and deep. I stared into it for a long time, long enough to feel the air shift. It was cooler in there, like a cellar. But when I stepped inside, the floor wasn't concrete. It was carpeted, dark red, worn thin in the middle, like it had seen footsteps, a lot of them. The hallway curved slightly left, making it impossible to see where it ended. I glanced back, half expecting the door to be gone. It wasn't. Not yet. I followed the hallway, slowly, counting my steps. 8, 12, 20. Then the smell hit me. Old perfume. The kind grandmothers wear, rosewater or maybe lavender. Except underneath it, something else. Wet wood, dirt, decay. By the time I reached the end, I was sweating, even though the air was cold. The hall ended in a wooden door. Simple. No knob. Just a black iron handle and a small plaque, studio. I hesitated. Something about that word made my stomach tighten. Then I opened it. The room was lit by a single bulb hanging from a wire. The walls were lined with paintings, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all of them, of me. Sleeping, walking, staring, each from a slightly different angle. Some from inside the house, some from outside. One showed me standing in the exact spot I was standing right then. I turned around, no one, no camera. But in the far corner of the room was an easel, and on it, a painting in progress. Unfinished, but clearly me. Sitting in the chair I was now standing next to it, there were brushes, oils, a palette, and a note, folded, plain. My name written across the front, in my handwriting. I opened it. It said, "You've entered too early. Now you'll have to see it the way we did." No signature. No clue who he was. Just those words. And then, I heard the humming again. That music box melody. Except this time it wasn't distant. It was behind me. I turned fast. The hallway was gone. So was the door. Just 4 solid walls. And behind the easel, standing silently, was a woman in a black veil. The same one from the nursery. But now I could see her hands, long fingers, pale, stained with red and black paint. They didn't shake, didn't twitch. They just held a brush, mid-stroke, as if I'd caught her in the middle of painting. She didn't speak, didn't move, just tilted her head and smiled. I backed up. The walls didn't budge. I was trapped. I don't remember passing out. One second I was backing away. The next, I was waking up in the study, drenched in sweat, my heart pounding like I'd run for miles. The painting room was gone. The closet was back. My backpack still inside of it, but my hands, stained. Red and black paint under every fingernail. I wanted to leave. I really did. I tried again to walk down the trail, compass in hand. But every time I passed the edge of the property, the sky turned gray. Not cloudy, blank. Like something was wiping it away. I'd take 20 steps and end up back at the house. Every single time. Like it was orbiting me, or I was orbiting it. Back inside, I noticed something else. The paintings in the halls were changing again. Now they weren't just of me. They were of other people. Men, women, a few kids. All different eras, different clothes, all standing in the same places I'd stood. Front porch, study, nursery, same poses, same expressions. And then after each set, another painting. Each one showed them screaming, mouths wide, hands out, and behind them, the woman in the veil, closer and closer each time. I think I'm just the next one. Another canvas in a long collection. And she's waiting to finish mine. But here's what scares me the most. Tonight I heard someone knock on the front door again, just like before. I almost didn't answer it, but I did. And there on the porch was me. Same face, same clothes, same key in his hand. He smiled and said, "I got the job."
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe for more horror tales.
I didn't sleep after seeing myself on the porch. I locked every door, every window, even though deep down I knew it wouldn't matter. This house isn't held together by wood and nails. It breathes, it waits, and now I think it's playing with me. That version of me, whatever he was, he never knocked again. Just stood out there for hours, watching, smiling. Eventually he was gone. No sound, no footsteps, just vanished. But he left something behind. A single item on the doormat, a cracked mirror, about the size of a dinner plate. Framed in rusted brass, the glass spiderweb through the center like it had been dropped hard, maybe by him, or maybe by the last person this house swallowed. I should have left it there. Should have kicked it into the woods. Instead, I brought it inside. That's when things got worse. The moment I crossed the threshold with that mirror, I felt it, like the air shifted again, pressed tighter. It was harder to breathe. I set the mirror on the fireplace mantel in the study and stared at my reflection. My face looked wrong, still mine technically, but there was a flicker in the eyes, like whoever was on the other side of that glass was only pretending to be me. I blinked. So did he, but a second too late. That's when I saw it, something behind me in the reflection. A figure, tall, veiled, unmoving, standing in the doorway to the hall. I spun around, nothing there. Back to the mirror. Still nothing. Then, written across the top edge of the cracked glass, I noticed tiny etched letters. The door opens both ways. I didn't know what that meant at the time. Now I do. The house has mirrors in almost every room. I'd noticed that before, but hadn't thought much of it. Now, they seem to be communicating. Each one showed slightly different reflections. Not optical illusions, not subtle shifts in perspective. I mean actual differences. In one mirror, the hallway behind me looked darker, longer. In another, my reflection's mouth moved, even when mine didn't. Some mirrors made my reflection younger, or older. One showed me missing half my face. But worst of all, some mirrors didn't show me at all. That night, I tried covering the mirrors. Bed sheets, towels, anything. But every time I'd walk out of the room and come back, they were uncovered again. Like the house was watching me watch myself. That night I heard whispers, coming from the mirror on the mantel. They weren't in English, but I understood them anyway. "He's almost done painting you." Around 2 a.m., I heard laughter. Children. I don't know why that made it worse. Maybe because there weren't supposed to be any children here. I followed the sound upstairs. Every hallway looked longer now, more warped. Like the geometry of the house was shifting room by room. I found the nursery again, even though it had vanished before. Door wide open, toys arranged in a perfect circle. A mobile spun slowly over the crib. The lullaby tune was broken now, slightly off-key, like it was being played underwater. There were new paintings on the walls. Children this time, dressed in old-fashioned clothes. Blank stares, pale faces, and each one had something in common. A cracked mirror in their hands. I heard a giggle behind me and turned just in time to see something small dart past the door. I followed, slowly, down the hallway, around the corner, to a new door. This one had no handle, just a keyhole, small, brass, and hanging from a hook beside it. My key. The one I'd been given when I took the job, except it had changed. It was longer now, covered in small carvings, symbols I didn't recognize. I held it in my hand and I swear I felt it pulse, like a heartbeat. I unlocked the door. It creaked open. Inside was a small windowless room, and at the center, a mirror, floor to ceiling. No cracks, just smooth, polished glass, and it hummed like a machine warming up. I stepped closer. My reflection wasn't matching my movements anymore. It stayed still while I approached. Then, it smiled, raised its hand, waved, then pointed to the corner of the room behind me. I turned around, nothing there, turned back. The reflection was gone, just an empty room in the glass. And then the mirror started to ripple, like water. And something began crawling through. I ran, didn't wait to see what it was. Back down the hallway, the house shook behind me, walls pulsing like lungs. I slammed the door shut behind me, turned the key, and it snapped in half. I heard nails scratching on the other side of the wood. Then, nothing, just silence. The next morning, the mirror on the mantel was gone. So was the study. I mean, literally, it wasn't there anymore. In its place was another hallway I didn't recognize. Shorter this time. Only one door at the end. On it, a plaque. Gallery of the Unfinished. I stood there for a long time. Didn't go in. Couldn't. Instead, I walked the house, looking for some proof that this is still reality. My bag was gone. So was my car key. My shoes were wet like I'd been outside, but I hadn't been. I checked the front door, still locked, still chained. And when I looked through the peephole, he was back. The other me, still smiling. Except this time, he held something in his hand. A mirror, smeared with blood. He placed it gently on the doormat, tipped his head like he was listening, then mouthed two words I will never forget. Your turn. I didn't sleep again. That other version of me had left the mirror on the doorstep, and even though I didn't open the door, it ended up inside anyway. I found it that morning, propped neatly on the kitchen table. No blood now, just a faint handprint on the glass. Mine, I didn't touch it. Instead, I stood in front of the new hallway where the study used to be. The plaque on the door still read, Gallery of the Unfinished. This house wants me to go in, and I think I have to. The hallway to the gallery felt off, shorter than before, but heavier. Like the air was thick with static. Each step felt like I was wading into deep water. When I reached the door, it opened before I could touch it. No creak this time, just silence. Inside was a massive room, far bigger than the house should allow. The walls stretched up into darkness, no ceiling in sight. And every surface was covered in paintings. Hundreds of them, all in various states of being finished. Portraits, landscapes, twisted, abstract horrors. Half of them looked like they were screaming. And then I saw myself. Again, dozens of times. In the center of the gallery was an empty easel and a single spotlight, beaming down from somewhere above. Beneath it, a paint-stained stool, and a canvas turned backward. I approached it slowly, and before I could touch it, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, no one. But one of the paintings on the wall had changed. Now, the figure in it wasn't just me. It was the veiled woman behind me, her hands on my shoulders. I backed away. Another painting shifted. This one showed me in the mirror room, but the reflection was no longer just me. It was something with black holes for eyes. And then I heard the voice again. That same whisper from before, but clearer now. The house remembers you. The house paints what you forget. It was coming from behind the canvas. I walked around it, and there, standing where I should have been, was a version of me. Younger, eyes hollow, clothes stained. He looked up at me and whispered, I didn't leave either. Then he crumbled, like dry leaves. Gone. Behind where he stood was a trapdoor in the floor. Small, iron, sealed with a ring latch. I pried it open. A narrow stairwell descended into pitch black. I should have stopped. I should have run. Instead, I climbed down. The stairs led into a tunnel. Cracked stone, damp walls. It smelled like mold and ash. At the end was a wooden door, just like the one in the first mirror room. Etched above it, Harlow. I pushed it open and stepped into a small room, barely lit by candlelight. Bookshelves lined the walls, old rotting tomes, dust everywhere. And in the center, an altar. Not religious, not exactly. More like artistic. Brushes, bones, broken frames. And carved into the altar was a symbol I recognized. The same one for my altered key. The one I hadn't seen in weeks. And next to the altar was a painting. One I hadn't seen before. It was me, alone, sitting in a chair, veil over my face, paintbrush in hand. And behind me, dozens of children, all veiled, all watching. Then the candlelight flickered and I heard a voice, a real one this time. Female, crisp, calm. Some things never finish themselves, it said. I turned dash, and the veiled woman stood in the doorway. But this time, she lifted the veil. And what was underneath wasn't a face, it was a mirror. Smooth, reflective. And in it, I didn't see myself. I saw you, staring back.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe for more horror tales.
I couldn't move. Not because I was frozen in fear, though that was definitely part of it, but because the reflection in the mirror where her face should have been wasn't moving either. It just stared at me. But it wasn't me anymore. The man in the mirror was older, gaunt, eyes sunken, skin pale like wax left too long in the sun. He looked like someone who'd been underground for years. And then he smiled. That cracked, hollow smile that every version of me in this house seemed to wear. Except this time, the mirror-faced woman turned her head toward the altar behind me. Slowly, deliberately, as if she wanted me to look. And so I did. There, nestled in the crevice beneath the bones and brushes, was a journal. Small, leather-bound, and warm. I don't mean metaphorically, I mean physically warm, like it had just been held by someone else. The pages inside were handwritten, but not all in the same handwriting. Dozens of different entries, different dates, some of them over a century old. They all began the same way. The house chose me. I skimmed through them. Some were rambling, incoherent, written in what looked like madness. Others were painfully lucid. People talked about the unfinished portraits, about being trapped in reflection, about hearing their own voices from rooms they'd never entered. One entry chilled me more than the rest. June 3rd, 1974. My name is Samuel Harlow. I was born in this house, and I believe I will die here too. But not before it finishes the painting. Not before it has everything it needs. I've seen my face 1,000 times, but never truly seen myself. This place shows you what you are beneath the skin, and sometimes what's waiting to crawl out of it. I turned the page, and the next one was blank, except for a single line freshly written. Now it's your turn, Aiden. My breath caught. No one in the journal had mentioned my name until now. I hadn't told it to anyone, not out loud. I slammed the book shut. The mirror-faced woman was gone, just vanished. I backed away from the altar and started retracing my steps, clutching the journal tight. But something was wrong now. The hallway behind me was different. It branched, split. There were 3 doors where there had only been one. And from behind the center door I heard music. A piano, software, slow, sad. And I recognized the melody. It was the same song the mobile had played in the nursery upstairs. Only now it was complete. No broken notes, no distortion, just heartbreak. I opened the door and stepped into a room that made no architectural sense. It was a ballroom, massive, chandelier above, candlelight flickering in long, gentle waves, and the piano was at the far end, being played by a child, maybe 10 years old, dressed in old-fashioned clothes. He didn't look up as I entered, just kept playing. When the final note hit, he spoke without turning. "Are you going to take my place?" I didn't answer, couldn't. He stood slowly, then finally looked at me. And I saw it, the same face from one of the paintings in the gallery. The boy holding the cracked mirror. Only now. He didn't look like a painting. He looked real, until he blinked and both of his eyes briefly reflected my face. Then he walked right past me and disappeared into the dark behind the curtains. I was alone again, except now all the mirrors in the ballroom, dozens of them lining the walls, began to shimmer. Not just reflect, shimmer, like heat waves rippling across glass. And in each one was a different version of me. Some screaming and some crying. One was laughing, covered in red paint, or blood, I couldn't tell. And one just stood there, whispering something over and over. I stepped closer to that one, tried to read his lips, and finally I heard it, faint like a dying echo. Don't let her paint you. The mirror cracked, just a small fracture across the center. But the moment it did, I felt something shift inside my chest, like something twisting, stretching, trying to crawl out. I staggered backward. The other mirrors began to crack too, one by one, and with each shatter, the room grew darker, until finally, only one mirror remained intact. And in that mirror, I saw her again. The woman. This time without the veil, without the mirror. Her face was human now, but horribly wrong. Her eyes were endless black, her mouth stitched shut. But even without speaking, I could hear her. Inside my head, there's only one way to finish the painting. She raised one hand, pointed to my chest, and I felt it. A burning pain, deep behind my ribs, like something was trying to carve its way out. I fell to my knees, and as the last mirror shattered, everything went black. When I woke up, I was back in the bedroom. Same one from my first night, but the journal was on the nightstand. Open, new page, same handwriting. You've now entered the canvas. Part of you has already been framed. And below that, a new date. Today's. I checked the window. Still night, checked the hallway. All wrong again. The door across from me had changed, now painted red, with a single word carved into it. Studio. I took one step forward, then another. And just as I reached for the knob, I saw it in the hallway mirror. Not me, but someone wearing my skin and holding a brush. The red door with the word studio carved into it radiated heat. Not warmth, heat, like the hallway had a fever. My fingers tingled before I even touched the knob. Behind the door, I could hear the slow hum of something mechanical and wet, like brushes dragging across canvas soaked in oil or flesh. I opened it anyway. I don't know why. Curiosity, compulsion, or maybe because at this point, I'm not sure I'm the one making decisions anymore. The room was circular. Stone walls smeared with layers of paint, some fresh, some decades old. The ceiling stretched too high to see, swallowed in shadows. But what chilled me most wasn't the room. It was the easels, dozens of them, scattered across the studio in concentric rings. Each one had a canvas, and each canvas had me on it, but not painted, stretched, my skin, literally. I staggered back in horror as I recognized the features. My freckles, a scar I got skateboarding at 12, a mole near my collarbone. These weren't representations of me. They were me. And they were still warm. The studio pulsed like a heart. I don't mean that metaphorically. The walls throbbed. I could hear it, slow, rhythmic beats, as if the house itself had grown its own circulatory system. I stepped forward toward the first canvas. It whispered when I got close. A faint voice, barely audible. He's still painting. I turned toward the center of the room. There was one final easel, massive, covered in a black velvet cloth. I knew what was underneath would break me, but I had to see. I gripped the cloth, pulled it down, and stared at the painting underneath. It was me, not another version, not twisted or veiled or aged, just me, sitting in this very room, looking at the painting. I blinked, and in the canvas, I blinked back. Then the painted version of me moved, turned his head, smiled, and behind him in the frame, a door began to open. Another red door, and from the other side stepped something I can barely describe. It looked like a person at first, but there were too many limbs, too many heads stitched together. a hybrid of faces I recognized from other portraits in the house. Men, women, children, all pieced into a single form. It reached a long, sinewy hand toward the painted me, and then I felt it. Cold fingers on my shoulder. I spun around, but nothing was there. Just the sound of brushes moving again. Only this time, I wasn't watching someone paint. I was being painted. I could feel each stroke across my back, my arms, my throat, like wet fire dragging over bone. I looked down at my arms, wet, red, skin peeling in thin strips. It was painting me from the inside out. I ran. I don't remember how I got out of the studio. I just remember stumbling through the hallways, skin burning, chest heaving, until I collapsed in the foyer. Only, it wasn't the foyer anymore. It was the library. The same library I remembered from my first night. Except now it was full of people. Silent, motionless. Dozens of them standing between the shelves, each holding a book. But their faces, each one was a canvas, framed, stitched to their heads. No eyes, no mouth, just paint. And then they began to turn toward me. One by one, books opening in their hands. Each book had a name written in the center. My name. Over and over again. Different handwritings, different scripts, ancient ink, crayon, blood. "Read the ending," one of them said. I couldn't see their mouth move, but the voice was in the air. Another whispered, "Find the unpainted chapter!" And suddenly all the books burst into flame. No heat, just light. And in the fire, I saw images. Me standing in front of a canvas. Me holding the brush. Me becoming the painter. And behind me, always behind me, her. The mirror-faced woman, now with flesh, now with teeth, and she was smiling. When the fire died, so did the library, gone in a blink. I was alone again, but I was holding something. A page, torn, written on one side in my own handwriting, though I never wrote it. It read, "You are not the last, you are the next." And on the other side, coordinates, latitude, longitude, not a place in the house, somewhere outside this town in Vermont. Why? I found my phone in my pocket, battery inexplicably full. I typed in the coordinates, a remote cabin, no roads, no phone lines, just a location deep in the woods. Marked on Google as property of Harlow Foundation, no access. I should have stopped there, but you already know I didn't, because by the time you're hearing this, I'm already in my car, driving toward that next place, that next canvas. One final thing before this chapter ends. As I left the Harlow house for the first time in what felt like years, I passed a mirror in the front hallway. It was shattered when I arrived, but now it was whole, and in it, there was no reflection, just an empty room, and the sound of someone quietly weeping. From inside the mirror,
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe for more horror tales.
the GPS died 40 minutes before I got there. No warning, just blank. I drove the last stretch on instinct, following the coordinates I'd memorized. There were no signs, no fences, just trees and shadows, growing thicker the deeper I went into the woods. It was like the road wanted me to get lost, but then there it was, the cabin, old, rotting, choked in vines and snow mold, though the air wasn't cold. The place looked abandoned, like it hadn't seen a soul in decades. And yet the door was slightly open, inviting me in. I parked the car and stepped into the silence. No birds, no wind, no insects, just a thick, unnatural stillness. Inside, the air smelled like old varnish and dried blood. The floors creaked under my boots and the walls were lined with paintings. Some half-finished, some completed, all nightmarish. Twisted portraits, stretching faces, limbs bent the wrong way. One was just a black void with a screaming mouth painted in the center. But every one of them, everyone had my eyes. On the cabin's far wall was a wooden panel carved with a symbol I'd seen before. A mirrored H, the Harlow sigil. Beneath it, etched in the wood, were words in Latin, ex umbra ars aeterna. I didn't know Latin, but I knew that phrase. It had been scribbled in the journal I found back at the house. From shadow art eternal. A hidden door groaned open beside it. Stairs leading down, and of course, I followed. The basement wasn't made of wood. It was stone, cold and damp, and larger than the cabin itself. Like the cabin was just a skin stretched over something ancient. The walls were covered in murals. Murals of me. Me walking through the Harlow house. Me standing before the altar. Me screaming in the studio. Me watching myself from mirrors. The timeline. It was accurate. And worse, it continued. Murals I hadn't experienced yet. One showed me trapped in a gilded frame. Another had me painting someone else's face. And in one, I was smiling next to the mirror-faced woman, both of us covered in blood. Then I saw the real painting. It was bigger than all the others, hung behind a locked iron gate. Candlelight flickered across its cracked surface. It was ancient, but beneath the years of grime and dust, I saw the signature, J. Harlow. 1894. It was a self-portrait of the original painter. He looked just like me. Not similar, identical. I stumbled back, heart pounding. My fingers brushed against an old metal filing cabinet tucked into the corner. Inside, yellowed folders and brittle photographs. One of them showed the Harlow house in the early 1900s. Same house, same architecture, same cursed feel. But next to it, rows of portraits, all different people. But each one wore the same expression, blank, empty, like their faces were just placeholders. One photograph was paperclipped to a letter, written in looping script. The painting requires the original. It always finds him again. Different life, same soul. The house remembers, the house restores. My knees buckled. All this time, it wasn't about haunting. It was about reclaiming me. I wasn't some unlucky visitor. I was the next incarnation of Julian Harlow himself, and the house wanted its painter back. I heard a noise above me, floorboards groaning. Someone else was here. I stuffed the letter in my jacket and turned off the light, then crept back up the stairs. Through the crack in the door, I saw a figure standing in the main room. Tall, thin, wrapped in burlap robes that scraped the floor, face hidden by a veil sewn from canvas. One arm held a wooden box, and then he spoke, voice low like a dull blade scraping rock. The painting is unfinished. The soul is ready. The frame awaits. I stepped back. Too loud. The figure turned. Even though I couldn't see its eyes, I felt them lock on me. I ran, shoved open the front door, bolted into the woods. Behind me, no footsteps, no shouting, but I could still feel that thing in my head. You've painted before, Julie. You'll paint again. I didn't stop until I reached the car. It didn't start, of course. I slammed the wheel, tried again. Nothing. Then, I saw it in the rearview mirror. The figure, standing at the tree line, still watching, and slowly raising one finger, pointing, not at me, at the seat beside me. There was a box, same one he'd been holding. I didn't put it there. I didn't see him place it, but it was there now. Wrapped in old muslin cloth, tied with a black ribbon. I didn't want to open it. God, I shouldn't have opened it. But of course, I did. Inside was a paintbrush, wrapped in human hair, and beneath it, a blank canvas, still wet, still breathing. I stared down at it, trembling. And then I heard it, the sound of a brush sliding across skin, only this time, it was coming from me, from my own hand, moving on its own, dipping into the air, and beginning to paint. Not the cabin, and not the woods, but a new room, one I hadn't seen before. Circular, all mirrors, and in the center, a single chair. Facing me, the canvas pulsed once, then stilled. And behind me, somewhere out in the woods, I heard the groan of something massive opening. A door and a gate, another house, another layer, and just one word carried on the wind. Return. The canvas wouldn't stop breathing. It sat on the passenger seat, exhaling soft clouds like lungs pressed under wet linen. No matter how far I drove or how fast, I could still hear it. A slow inhale. A long, desperate exhale. Like something was alive in the fabric, waiting to be finished. But that wasn't even the worst part. I kept painting. Every time my right hand wasn't gripping the wheel, it would twitch, reach, pretend to hold a brush. I had to tie it with a shoelace to keep from stroking invisible lines in the air. And the worst part, I wasn't horrified. I was calm, like it was muscle memory, like I'd done it before. I didn't decide where to go next. The road took me there, somewhere deep in the mountains, no GPS, no cell service, just a winding trail that led to a place I didn't recognize, but my bones did. Another house, far older than the others, not ruined, preserved, perfect, like it had been waiting. The front door opened on its own. The air that came out wasn't dusty or stale, it was warm, welcoming, and I stepped inside like I belonged. Because I did. The entrance hall was all mirrors, dozens of them, floor to ceiling, some cracked, some warped. None of them showed me, just empty hallways, flickering candles, painted faces that shouldn't have moved but did. And then, one reflection changed. Not my body, not my clothes, just my face. It wasn't me anymore. It was Julian Harlow, older, eyes wild, teeth yellow, cheeks streaked with red paint, or blood. He looked at me, spoke without moving his lips, finished the gallery. The walls behind him swung open, and I saw it. A hallway stretched for what looked like miles. Every few feet, a door, each one labeled Subject 001, Subject 002, Subject 003. I walked past them one after another until I found the one labeled Subject 303, Aiden Wells. That's me. I opened the door. Inside, an exact replica of the bedroom I grew up in, down to the old race car sheets, the poster of Mars on the wall, the scratch on the desk I'd blamed on my cousin. But this wasn't a memory. It was a reconstruction. Someone or something had been watching me, studying me, preserving me like a museum piece. And on the wall above the bed, a single canvas, blank, wet, waiting. I stepped closer, my hand lifted. Even without a brush, it moved in long, practiced strokes. I saw outlines start to form in the canvas. Familiar shapes, my childhood home, my parents, my dog, Max. All of it flowing from memory into shape. I tried to stop. I couldn't. The canvas wanted it, needed it, fed on it. And when I stepped back, my breath caught in my throat. Because the painting moved. Little flickers inside it. My mother wiping the sink. My dog chasing a ball. Tiny, fluid motions. Like the canvas wasn't a painting at all. It was a window. Behind me, someone clapped. Slow, deliberate. I turned, and she was there. The mirror-faced woman. But now, she had a face. Mine. My face. Smiling back at me, only older, wiser, and smeared with crimson across the lips like lipstick. "You've done beautifully," she said. "He always knew you'd return." I backed against the wall. She stepped forward, barefoot on the wooden floor. "You are not the haunted, Aiden. You are the haunter. You are the one who stays behind." I shook my head. No. I came here to escape," she smiled. "There's no escape from your own gallery." And then the lights above us flickered. Dozens of doors in the hallway swung open. And people, strangers, began to step out. Eyes wide, terrified. Just like I had been when I first arrived. That's when I understood. They weren't just paintings. They were new subjects. Each one of them was me, from different lives. Reborn into different times, different forms. All drawn back to this place. And I was the one capturing them, again and again. "You are Julian Harlow," she said. "You always have been. Each lifetime, you're reborn. And each time, the house finds you. Because the gallery must grow." The air thickened. My chest tightened. I tried to scream, but no sound came. Instead, paint poured from my mouth, thick, black, oily. I dropped to my knees, and the woman, myself, knelt beside me. "Now," she whispered, brushing my cheek, "you must choose. Become the frame or the brush." The walls around me twisted. The floor groaned. And from the mirror above the bed, I saw a reflection again. It was me. But my skin was made of canvas, my veins ink, my heart a pulsing paintbrush. I stood in front of the canvas, raised my hand, and began painting again. Only this time, I wasn't painting memories. I was painting someone new. A child, lost in the woods, drawn to a house he'd never seen before. A house waiting for him. A house full of mirrors. And through the paint, I saw him. Confused, afraid, real, because he wasn't just a story. He was next. Now I sit here, alone, watching, waiting. There's one canvas left in the gallery. Yours. It's still blank. But not for long, because the house is patient, and it always finds who it needs. Just like it found me. Just like it found all of us. You'll see. When the mirror doesn't show your face anymore. When the reflection starts moving before you do. When the painting on your wall begins to breathe, you'll know it's time. And I'll be here, brush in hand, smiling.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe for more horror tales.